the forthcoming release of The Legend of Zelda. Tears of the Kingdom is generating high expectations among Nintendo fans, with many considering it to be one of the most anticipated games in recent years. Not only is it the latest addition to the iconic Zelda franchise, but it is also a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, widely recognized as one of the greatest video games of all time. The new game's trailers have revealed an emphasis on creating elaborate machines using a range of new tools, which appears to be a nod to the vast network of Zelda fans who have achieved remarkable feats in Breath of the Wild. Despite Nintendo's efforts to keep much of the game shrouded in secrecy, our extensive hands-on experience with the new tools demonstrated an impressive level of creative problem-solving and thrilling exploration. During our demonstration, we were given two different tasks. The first was a simple objective of defeating some enemies and reaching a tower, which allowed us to test out the various new tools at our disposal. While the most obvious route was to climb up a ramp and fight our way through the enemies, there were many other easier approaches we could take. Though there were certain limitations on where we could go, we were given almost complete freedom to experiment with the tools within the designated areas. Initially, we opted for a straightforward approach and charged into the enemy base with our swords drawn. This strategy, however, proved to be ineffective, primarily because we were out of practice with Breath of the Wild's combat mechanics. Nonetheless, we felt it was worthwhile to try it out, just to see what would happen. Despite my initial failure against the enemies, I persevered and attempted a second approach using the new building tools at my disposal. With the Ultra Hand ability and the Marquee building tool, I was able to construct complex structures and machines to help me overcome obstacles. While I didn't have any flying implements on hand, I used the Ultra Hand's ability to grab almost anything not connected to the ground to build a functional hot air balloon with a dragon-headed machine that breathed fire when struck, propelling me vertically into the sky. Once I had gained enough height, I glided past the enemies and reached my goal. In the second part of the hands-on demo, I was given even more freedom to explore and experiment with the tools provided. The setting shifted to the Sky Islands, with a vast and expansive space to traverse and explore. My objective was to island hop my way over to a distant floating landmass, and while there were a few limitations in place, I had a wide range of tools at my disposal, including the streamlined building tool and a Zonai parts distributor. This part of the demo allowed me to fully immerse myself in the game's world and experiment with the different tools and techniques available. The open-ended nature of the objectives encouraged creative problem-solving, and the vast space allowed for thrilling exploration and discovery. The Legend of Zelda. Tears of the Kingdom is one of the most anticipated games from Nintendo in recent years. As a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, which is regarded by many as one of the best games ever made, expectations are sky-high. Recent trailers have shown that the game will feature an emphasis on building machines using a new suite of tools, which is a nod to the network of Zelda fans who have pulled off amazing feats in Breath of the Wild. While Nintendo is still keeping much of the game a mystery, the hands-on demonstration of the new tools has shown an incredible amount of creative problem-solving and thrilling traversal in this ambitious sequel. The hands-on demonstration was divided into two parts. The first part was a short segment on the ground where the objective was to get past some enemies and into a tower. The primary purpose of this segment was to test the array of new tools. Although the most obvious path was to go up a ramp, there were many easier ways. The demo session had strict limitations on where the player could go, but there were almost no restrictions on what they could do within the spaces provided. The first approach was to use the sword and challenge the enemies to combat, but it was destined to fail as the player was severely out of practice in Breath of the Wild's combat. For the second attempt, the player used the new building tools to circumvent the enemies altogether. The Ultra Hand ability, the new Marquee building tool that lets players create complex structures and machines, can grab almost anything that isn't connected to. The player used the streamlined option for building with the Ultra Hand to build a small, simple, but functional hot air balloon with a dragon-headed machine part that faced upward into the balloon and breathed fire when struck. The balloon took on a straight vertical ascent, and once the player had gained enough height over the enemy base, they simply hopped off the balloon and hang glided past the enemies to the goal. The second part of the hands-on demo took place in the Sky Islands, with more open-ended goals and a massive amount of space to explore. The player's objective was to island hop their way over to a distant floating land mass, and very few limitations were imposed. The streamlined building tool was still available, and the player had access to a Zonai parts distributor that Nintendo cheerfully nicknamed the Gumball Machine. The machine dispensed a random assortment of Zonai machine components in return for inserted cores. These components included fans, fire-breathing dragon head machines, pistons that launched objects or the player on a regular rhythm, and rockets that looked and acted exactly like rockets, launching the player into the atmosphere with massive propulsive force. There was also a control yoke Zona part, which not only let players steer vehicles but also activated whatever engine type they had attached automatically. The Ultra Hand was remarkably easy to use once the player got used to it. They could stick parts together in just about any configuration they could imagine, and the tool allowed them to snap to certain angle degrees. Since it's all physics-based, symmetry equals stability, and the game understood this and provided a little help locking the second rocket at the same angle as the first. It only took a few minutes of toying with the feature before the player felt completely comfortable using it. While their designs weren't too impressive, they were often perfectly functional with minimal control fussing. Sometimes the island hopping solution was obvious, like putting together a couple of fans and a flat surface to make a floating platform and reach new heights. Other times, the player needed to summon an airplane designed to cross a gap between islands. In the demo of the upcoming game, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, players were introduced to the Ultra Hand, a tool that can stick together any objects from the world along with machine-like Zonai parts. The Ultra Hand is easy to use, and players can snap parts together in any configuration they can imagine, thanks to its physics-based symmetry. The game encourages players to use the travel medallion to mark their progress and fast travel to that point in the overworld. This feature is particularly useful for challenges that require players to cross several islands, allowing them to mark their progress as they go. One of the highlights of the demo was seeing how these tools could be used to solve puzzles. While Breath of the Wild's sandbox model was enjoyable, many players missed the clockwork precision of classic Zelda puzzles and their intricately tailored solutions. Tears of the Kingdom bridges that gap by presenting open-ended physics-based puzzles with intuitive solutions that still offer the satisfaction of finding one's complicated but correct way. One puzzle in the demo required the player to cross a wide chasm to another island, with a large structure as the pivot point between the two islands. The player could move the structure by manipulating and turning a small model of it with the Ultra Hand. The player found a way to turn the structure so that a bridge extended to them, but then there was no way to get from there to the other island. The player could turn the bridge towards the structure, but they couldn't get to it either. The solution was to make use of the recall ability, which rewinds objects to a prior state. The player moved the structure into position as a bridge to the second island, then moved it back to the first island, where they started to cross. The player hit it with recall, rewinding time so that it would move backward and become a moving platform. The tools in the game were flexible enough to let the player solve the puzzle in various ways. For example, the player could have flipped the entire structure upside down, and it would have made a normal bridge. The player could have also moved it into either of the positions and used a hot air balloon to gain some height so they could glide over. However, the player instinctively read making a moving platform as the goal, and the tools allowed them to. In another puzzle, the player had to build their own aircraft to cross the final chasm to their goal. They used a metallic structure with a divot that served as a resting place for one of the plane parts, which had a fin that slotted in perfectly to act as a runway. The player placed 2 fans atop the plane, then another identical plane piece on top for a sort of Zonai version of the Wright brothers biplane. The player placed the control yoke on top, but they realized later that the lower deck would have been a good way to transport items across large distances. Overall, Tears of the Kingdom offers an exciting and innovative gameplay experience that challenges players to think creatively and use the tools at their disposal to solve puzzles and overcome challenges. The demo showcased the distance capabilities of the Zonai machines, which appeared with battery icons similar to those on a cell phone. The demo started with 3 large bars of battery, but it remains uncertain how far one can go in the game, or if vehicles will eventually become available to traverse the entire map. However, as the game progresses, it is likely that players will unlock more battery power for their Zona devices. The fuse ability, a new feature, is primarily associated with combat, but it also has applications for exploring the world. Fusing a sword with a rock not only enhances its strength and durability, but also allows players to break open cracked walls and floors with the DIY sledgehammer. This suggests that the fuse ability has the potential to unlock secret areas. Combat in the game is engaging, with the fuse ability adding a new dimension of experimentation. Players can fuse items from their inventory to their equipped weapon through a quick menu option, which can be tricky to master in the heat of combat. Even mistakes can be enjoyable, as players are encouraged to try different combinations of fusing to see what happens. The number of different possible combinations and applications for fuse is vast, making it a brain-bending feature that players will have to explore together. The demo did not include any story content, and it remains unclear whether the game will include traditional Zelda dungeons. Tears of the Kingdom is a game that draws inspiration from Nintendo's fans' creativity, and it is expected to continue to inspire its community of players when it releases on May 12th. The launch of a new Zelda game is always highly anticipated, and the upcoming release of The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom is no exception. This game is a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, which is widely regarded as one of the greatest games ever made. As a continuation of the same story in the same world with the same characters, the attention surrounding Tears of the Kingdom is even greater than usual. Although Nintendo has been tight-lipped about the story, trailers have revealed that Link and Zelda will be separated again, and Ganondorf will be a key villain. This marks the first time that Ganondorf will have voice acting in a Zelda game. The core trio of Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf will drive the game's narrative, but there will be many other characters as well, including some returning from Breath of the Wild. The setting will be the same open-world map from Breath of the Wild, but Nintendo has promised significant changes. The game will introduce Sky Islands, which will provide a new area to explore with a unique level design. Going from the surface world to the sky and vice versa will be completely seamless, which is quite an impressive feat given the hardware limitations of the Switch. In addition to the familiar abilities from Breath of the Wild, the game will also introduce 4 new abilities. Tears of the Kingdom also introduces 3 new abilities that will take player agency and mechanical depth to new heights. The Ascend ability allows players to move upwards through the roof of any structure, providing a new method of traversing the game world. The Rewind ability lets players reverse the motion of objects, which can be useful in combat or reaching Sky Islands. Finally, the combat-heavy game features a much greater variety of enemies than its predecessors, such as mechanical constructs, stone titans, and returning archetypes like moblins, okoblins, and lionels. The game will likely receive post-launch DLC, as with most of Nintendo's first-party titles. While pricing has been a point of controversy, Nintendo promises that Tears of the Kingdom will justify its higher price point through its experience. The game's file size is also noteworthy, as it requires 18.2 GB of storage space, the largest for any Switch game to date. Overall, the combination of familiar characters and settings with new challenges and abilities promises to make The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, an exciting and highly anticipated addition to the franchise. The upcoming open-world sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, promises to revolutionize gameplay with its innovative fusion feature. Players will be able to combine various objects to create new items with unique properties, including weapons with enhanced durability and other properties. For instance, a player can fuse a sword and shield to make a more powerful weapon, or attach a bomb to their shield to create a smokescreen. Additionally, using the Ultra Hand ability, players can fuse objects in the environment to make cars, rafts, flying machines, and much more. The game's creative and experimental nature will allow for limitless possibilities for players to explore. Thanks for tuning in to today's video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, make sure to give it a like and leave a comment down below letting me know what you thought. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Until next time, keep gaming and I'll catch you in the next one. Don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time right here on Gamers Den.